Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them real quick every week. Videos at the bottom, you know what to do. We have a lot of news this last week, and we're going to have a lot of news going into patch 3.4 over the course of the next week. Expecting to make a video explaining how we believe Wondrous Tales works in its entirety, since a lot of people aren't very clear on that. Hell, even I had my own questions. But most of this stuff is like live letter overview, patch 3.4 trailer, overview. I started posting the parts of Final Fantasy 6 of Final Fantasy Count Up to YouTube. Expect 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12 to all be making their appearances over the course of the next month or so. That being said, I am streaming this live on Twitch, and I don't have much news otherwise, so let's hop right into the questions, shall we? All right, question number 1 for the week. Mr. Happy, I have to get this off my chest about 4.0 and balance. Okay, 1, can I have high-level quest chains in the open world defeating boss rank mobs in zones? So first off, the answer to that is probably no. Not that you can't, not that it can't be done, but unless those are going to be to somewhat instanced to you, think of the same way that like treasure maps are instanced to people, even though they're technically out in the open world. That's the only way I could really see that working, because you're not going to be able to properly balance. We've seen this with the hunts. Not going to be able to properly balance actual world bosses without sort of thinking people are just going to roll over it with enough people to show up. And that's what people are going to do. Everyone's just going to show up, roll over whatever boss it is, unless it murders people super easy, and then people are going to move on. Or you have the opposite problem where you tune it for all those people, and then, you know, barely any people show up, and it becomes a disaster. So, 2, can the regular mobs in the open world be a viable form of having a party to make skill chain relevant? Final Fantasy XI wasn't hard. I always hate this comparison that Final Fantasy XI's open world was hard. All they did was they just essentially added one avenue to level, and that was you had to kill monsters. That's how it was early on. And the most experience points was to tackle enemies that were a ton of levels ahead of you. The enemies themselves weren't difficult. That was just the only viable means of leveling. And that's ultimately why doing that in Final Fantasy XIV is kind of moot. Because no matter what, people are always going to take the path of least resistance. In Final Fantasy XI, there was never a path of least resistance. There was one path, essentially. So even if they did do this, you would probably be hard-pressed to find anyone actually interested in just strictly going out there and killing monsters. Just killing monsters in the open world, just to level. As a former 11 player, I hope you understand. I really don't, because I feel like I don't believe Final Fantasy XI was that great of a game. I played it for 7 years because of the people I played it with. I'm one of those people that actually thinks Final Fantasy XI was fairly easy. I was never really challenged in the gameplay itself, and even the thought process of figuring out fights or figuring out what the right spell to cast was, that was never really that hard either. It's just the beginning of the fight. Okay, can slow land, can paralyze land, can blind land, what element is he? And then you're done, essentially, and it's just spam 1 or 2 abilities for the next 30 minutes to an hour, and you're essentially done. I do agree that I want more open world content, but I don't think that what you've proposed here is necessarily what I would want out of Final Fantasy XIV. I don't feel like it definitively adds anything of value to the game, just because anything open world in Final Fantasy XIV is just going to be rolled over by just the sheer number of people who appear in the game. So I just don't think it's worth investing into that deeply into open world content. If they should create something, it needs to be balanced. I agree, and hopefully they have something in mind. All right, next question. I saw who it was, and I also saw the layout of the question. So it seems he understands that I was upset last week that he didn't try to fool me by getting me to read some sort of weird pickup line. Hey Haps, your grades must suck, but I'm sure this D won't hurt. All right, I'm scrolling down to the question on that note. Alright, so let's see. Sup, bruh? Kappa. If you had to choose one job in 14 that you had to play from now until forever, which job would it be and why? Easily Monk. I mean, Monk to me has been the job that I've wanted to play in raids since A Realm Reborn launched. A Realm Reborn launched, I got suckered into Bard because it was what people needed most. Then, Ninja came out. I was like, oh, well, we already have another melee in this group, but Bard transitioning to Ninja, you at least have all your accessories, so sure, just do that. And then it was, then I finally was like, oh, I'm not raiding on a world level anymore. Let me just play whatever I want. I'm going to play Monk. Yeah, and if I raid again, it's going to be on Monk. So then I join the group that I'm in now, and they're like, yeah, sure, you can go Monk. Let's just let people play what they want. And then we got Ember and Tirith Peng, and they both play Monk, so they were like, would you mind playing Machinist? And I was like, yes, I'll play Machinist. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. Oh, what is this? Look at this. He's a cheater. Monk is not an option. Bullshit. You're not allowed to define what options I'm not allowed to have. That is my answer. So deal with it. All right, next question. Hello, Mr. Happy. I hope you had a good weekend. I did. Could use some more sleep, but other than that, I'm all right. Do you think we will have another hidden movie cutscene like the Flames of Truth? I don't think so. Not with Alexander. Flames of Truth was kind of hidden within the opening to A Realm Reborn. It was essentially the conclusion of the A Realm Reborn cinematic trailer, in that of when Bahamut breaks free. So no, I don't think we will. I think that was something they planned like super far in advance. I don't see that happening with Alexander or with the main scenario itself, because we've kind of already gone way past what we see in the opening trailer for Heaven's Ward, and there was never. It's not comparable really to when Bahamut just came and destroyed everything. All right, next question. Hi, Mike. Ilmarion here. No. You got to say it like this. Hey, no. Hey guys, Ilmarion here, and welcome to my question for Mondays with Mr. Happy. That's what you should have done. Have a bunch of chocolate cookies with your happy. I don't like cookies and first of all, cookies and coffee. No. Second of all, I don't even like donuts and coffee. It doesn't appeal to me. I don't feel like the coffee adds anything to the donut. I don't feel like the donut adds anything to the coffee. It's lost on me. I don't know. 3 short questions. All right, luckily you bolded TLDRs here. Do you think that a system like the little Mikote girl can also work as a platform to the middle core players of the raid team? That way, I imagine, in order to gain access to Savage, you need to complete a certain test or diverse trials throughout the game. So, gating content has its merits and demerits. The merit is that people have to complete content, which proves, therefore, that they are at least competent on some level, to some degree, depending on what kind of gates we're talking about here. In order to get into the raids, but it also completely discourages people from even attempting to get into the raiding scene. So like, I'm never a fan of super gating behind content like that. Like honestly, Stone Sky Sea, even that, like only the DPS I would gate necessarily for Stone Sky Sea, unless they add like a Stone Sky Sea that properly tests your knowledge of being a tank or properly tests your knowledge of being a healer. Other than that, it seems kind of a waste to force people to do Stone Sky Sea, because the scholar requirement of Stone Sky Sea for A8 Savage is like 1100 or some shit, or like 900. You're probably not going to reasonably pull that off in a fight like A8 Savage, so it's completely lost on me, and it doesn't in any way assure that you know how to heal. Same with going back and doing these other pieces of content. It doesn't in any way, like, you could just get carried through all those things, and then it just becomes a hassle to do. 2, do you believe that in light of the nerfs we are going to get in the raid scene and in rotations, there's going to be some incentives for hardcore players? I mean, for the most part, hardcore players are incentivized by there's a plethora of content for them to grind out and do. Like, if you're hardcore, does the question become, what am I hardcore about? Am I hardcore in terms of how much I play? Am I hardcore in terms of the content I want to achieve? And there's always a mix of the two. And I think that you literally, it's not that there isn't anything for the hardcore. The hardcore will take on the most challenging content the fastest. Those are what the hardcore will most likely do in terms of people looking to challenge themselves, because that's when the content is at its hardest. Other than that, I wouldn't really expect much. I mean, soloing Palace of the Dead could be considered hardcore, especially if you're going to do all 200 floors. But you can't create too much content around the hardcore. You need to make sure that the majority of the content is in the low and middle core of players, the players who either play but they don't do a lot of hard content, but they spend a lot of time, they pay every month, or the people who want a challenge but they're not trying to go nuts on this thing. You know, those are the people you need to cater to the most to see success. And the amount of content that is offered to the hardcore needs to represent the amount of hardcore there actually is. There's probably about 1 to 5% of people who are hardcore, and that's the amount of content that you should have dedicated to them. You can't have like 80% of your content dedicated to the hardcore and expect your game to be successful. Wildstar. 2, let's see. So 3, when are you going to invite? So asking to invite specific guests on the State of the Realm doesn't always work. People have schedules, and State of the Realm is on a very specific schedule. I actually wanted to get Derby on the show. I couldn't get in touch with him. Ariala I haven't talked to in quite some time, but that's another guest I've wanted. I don't think Xeno's schedule lines up very well, And Miz has been on a show before. We'd like to get her on a show again in the near future. But once again, the scheduling of State of the Realm is very, very difficult to get certain guests on. Like Miz raids pretty much in the mid. She starts raiding in the middle of State of the Realm. So then if we have to move State of the Realm back like an hour earlier per se, she gets back from her job and she wants to, make sure she relaxes, eats dinner. And then you see what I mean? Like, it's something that has to be planned so far in advance and has to be kind of worked around that it's difficult. But we do want to get some of these guests on the show, as you've said. Generally, asking when you're going to get someone on the show is not a good question because it's not a matter of when. It's most of the time a matter of how. It's most of the time just not possible based on scheduling. All right, next question. Hey, Haps, longtime viewer, first-time poster. So have a bonus of best in slot 3.4 gear set of your choosing. I'm going to need it, dude. My machinist play is not good. It's funny, though. The scholar in my group he just started being our scholar. When I was first doing A8 Savage, I was still kind of new on machines. He said I was doing 950-ish. And when we just cleared it the other day, he said it was doing 1150-ish. So I guess I'm doing better on Scholar, but I could be doing way more than that. My Scholar play sucks, just to be straight up. So my question is, do you think instead of having 3 different raid difficulties, as you can make 2 difficulties closer together? So the thing is, the only way that feasibly works in Final Fantasy XIV, you only have 2 difficulties, is if normal is the way it is now. I know that sounds stupid, but listen. And Savage is closer to what Coil was. That's the only way you successfully have 2 difficulties in Final Fantasy XIV, and it seems like that's the direction they're currently moving towards with this final tier. I think the bigger thing is instead of worrying about the amount of difficulties, let's start working on the amount of bosses, because that allows you to make difficulty curves that are much more meaningful. And Yoshi P himself has said they would love to do more with the raids. He needs 2 more really experienced, hardcore, dedicated developers, and then they can really make the raids shine. He said this in a live letter, so that is what it is. Like, somebody who speaks Japanese and who's a really good game dev, please go apply for that position. Maybe we get them after 15 is done, but I don't know if that really overlaps or applies in this case. All right, next question. Hey, Mike, don't worry, I'll figure something out. And yes, my last week's Ninja Please Do Dancing Edge question was with a 4-man constellation and a paladin as a tank in mind. But now have this. I raid turn 9 for Glamour again and find it funny that the player rage about the lack of difficulty but failing at old content that's from 2.2 all the way in patch 3.3. What are your thoughts on this? So a lot of people, and I've noticed this ever since Final Fantasy, in any MMO I've noticed this. I played World of Warcraft for several years, and I don't know if my audio is dipping out like it does occasionally, because I just saw the video kind of clip out for a second right there. I don't know if people just they have a complex about themselves, but people who have never touched a set of content will judge its difficulty for themselves based solely on the success of other players. Oh, Final Coil was beaten in 5 days. This is too easy. Okay, have you beaten it in 5 days? No, I haven't even gone into the raid yet. Then shut up. It's shut up. You have no right to talk about anything. You can't know how hard the content is without doing it yourself. And a lot of people want that. A lot of people, okay, some people want difficult content, but they want it for smaller groups of people so that they can reach it more accessibly. That's a fair thing to say. Oh, I would love to do difficult content, but with my schedule, it's really hard to get 7 other people whose schedules line up. And you know what? That's understandable. That can be hard for anybody. So that's a fair thing to say. I want more difficult content in the game that's designed around 4 people so I can at least get in there and improve my skills that way. That is a fair criticism, I feel. But literally being somebody who just says, nah, the raid's so easy, I don't even want to do that shit, it just looks too easy, but I've never raided before in my life, shut up. That's it. Shut up. That's all I gotta say. Alright, next question. Really? Sup, bruh? I noticed there are no rules for posting 2 separate questions. You're right. There are no rules against posting 2 separate questions. Sometimes people ask a question, and then they say, oh, but I wanted to ask that. And they either go back and edit the original post, which you could have done in this case, or they just ask in a completely separate line. I've seen this happen before. I noticed, okay, so imagine. Okay, not a great way to start a question is to make me imagine things, Okay, I'm already looking at this. I don't know if this is a question. Okay, this is a question about how would I feel about this specific set of content developments, I guess. Okay. Imagine if Yoshi would change the system to this. Extreme Primals stays the same. So it looks like Primals stay the same. Current story raids. I don't think That's a good idea. It's become the old, or what's it called? No, we're never going to go back. Oh, the new platform, the actual raids, will be around the same difficulty as old Coil Savage. No, I mean, I don't understand what you're asking. You're literally just, so you're basically asking to bring the difficulty of normal up. So I've explained this a lot of times before. You can't bring the difficulty of normal up. You literally can't. I thought maybe you could, looking at, you know, what some of the more vocal people say. You can't deny the numbers more than anything else. The number of people who participate in the story difficulty of the raids is incredibly high. Yes, that's because there's story. Yes, that's because they're raids. Yes, that's because there's gear associated. Essentially, though, you can judge that as successful content. Whereas you look at Savage, and you get less successful content. Coil had its own moderate level of success, but the bottom line is it was still something that around maybe 10% of the community saw. The other 90% saying, I really wish I could enjoy the story. That was probably the biggest piece of feedback I saw. When I once criticized them adding story mode, I started gauging the reaction of my viewers on a video. I don't remember which one it was, but the number of people who said, and in my live Twitch chat, on my YouTube videos, my live Twitch chat, who responded saying, no, we need a story mode. And these are people who said, I can't raid Savage, it's my only way of enjoying it. They can't make it the same as Coil was. Bottom line, it will help the middle core tier of raiders. It may help raiding as a whole, but for the entire health of the game, it doesn't actually achieve anything, essentially. So I don't agree with removing the way it is now. I could see a restructure of it where, for example, you have the normal difficulty, just like, here's the normal difficulty, it comes out first, it's kind of like Coil difficulty, whatever, and the story is in there. And then you go into the easier mode for people down the line. Especially with 3.4 looking like it's achieving a better balance of releasing more balanced difficulty content between, you know, casual and mid-core and hardcore than our average patch. That's the only other real solution I see, as opposed to just, let's make normal mode like Coil and then make Savage like it was with second Coil. There's a reason they never made Final Coil Savage. One, they wanted to focus their efforts on Savage for the expansion. And two, no one really cared about going from Coil to Savage Coil. Like, the few people who did enjoyed the challenge, but then it was like, I wish I could have gotten something out of this. And that's essentially what you'd probably get out of this scenario as well, in the end. Alright, next question. Hey, Haps, have an instant ESO cap. Thank God. And a 1-to-1 ESO to lore conversion. Oh, you're like, you know the secrets. You know the secrets. 2 questions. The former third question was kind of answered after with the visuals of the 3.4 trailer, but you'll find it below if you are interested. Okie dokie. Poetics. an absolute tombstone currency for level 50 stuff. When 4.0 hits the servers, do you think they will use another tombstone range for that? I think what they'll do is they'll get rid of poetics when level... Actually, this doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? They can't just keep adding definitive level 50 tombstone stuff. I'm wondering if they'll work the level 50 and 60 tombstones into each other and essentially allow you to buy level 60 gear before level 60. I have a feeling, though, they're going to just leave poetics as is. They're going to make tombstones of... what's the next one coming out? Tombstones of Scripture to be the level 60 tombstone, and then they release a level 70 tombstone. I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. I don't think it's the best way to do it, but it's probably what's going to happen. 2, I see a lot, and I mean a lot, of wipes and instant rage quits in the final steps of Faith. It seems people don't like how runs are going. Do you think they will make that trial easier like they did with the steps of Faith? It's probable, but I think that I think they can't. I think they need to leave it as is. For one, for an organized group, obviously it's not difficult at all. There's a few mechanics, you might wipe once or twice, but then after that, you're good to go. But there needs to be some degree of urgency to improve for individual players. Yes, it's frustrating when you're not the player who needs that individual improvement and the players around you need it, but that's life, man. You could be as good as something. That's like walking into I guess like a fight club type thing. And you know you're a good fighter. And when you watch the other people fight around you, you're like, God, these people suck. At least I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's just like, you can't expect everyone to be at your level all the time. And if you don't create a fair opportunity for other people to improve by, I'll say putting up with, as it sounds derogatory, but it's how people probably feel in these scenarios, you're pretty much saying you never want to see these people. You want these people to improve, but not while you're around. You don't want to be around that at all. You want them to just come back when they're better, as opposed to being the avenue through which, hey, you know what? They may not understand fully. If I don't play with them here, you know, hopefully they learn over fights. Sometimes people take a really long time to learn. You know what? You just gotta be able to put up with it. You gotta have a strong will, and you gotta not be an asshat. You gotta just not put the pressure on them and not make them feel like shit. You have to do positive reinforcement. That's probably the way to go. Former question, by the way, that they said was answered kind of. Palace of the Dead Traps got a similar design to the symbols in the front of the faces of the Asians. My theory is that we'll meet some Asians again. If you're implying that the final boss that they showed was an Asian, it's probably unlikely. It's either Nebeth from Tactics Ogre, or it is Scarmiglione from earlier Final Fantasy. Those are my two guesses, at the very least. Alright, next question. Hey, could you explain to me what exactly makes spell speed so important for black mages and debt generally avoided? In-depth explanation with as many details. Luckily, this doesn't need that in-depth of an explanation. Getting through their spell rotation faster is just a bigger DPS increase. Getting through, making sure that you are able to properly keep up your Enochians, making sure that you, because for black mage, it's not like damage over time is a factor. Spell speed for a lot of other jobs, or skill speed and spell speed, lose some efficiency because while they do increase the dot damage, it's just not as effective as the other stats at increasing dot damage. Because black mage is a lot of straight up flat damage, getting through your spells faster essentially means you're able to rotate between fire and ice faster, which means you're able to get more fire spells off. You're able to get them off in a shorter window of time. It just scales better. Just because it doesn't have to, it's literally just increasing the rate at which you can deal your huge flat damage. That's the easiest way to describe it. It doesn't need that much depth. Determination increases your damage. It just doesn't do it to the same degree as spell speed does. Spell speed just is god tier. It also makes things like Enochian easier to handle. It makes getting cast off in between enemy skills faster. That might make you move, and it gets your recast up faster. Just everything about it benefits black mage design so much. You know what I mean? Alright, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, longtime viewer, first time poster. You have a great name on our forums, by the way. And of course, your reward is Final Fantasy XI related based on your name. Your bonus is a damselfly worm, magic skull, and crab apron. I can get my sub job, Vohayo. Alright, let's see. And in case you can tell, I'm a longtime Final Fantasy XI player. Gee, I hadn't figured that out just yet. Thanks for telling me. Likes to sit on my porch and yell at the 14 kids on my yard and ramble about how things used to be with rose-tinted 11 glasses. My question is, if you had to choose one of these 11 elements to put in a 14, what would it be? Okay, fair question. Fair question. Introducing open-world dungeons like the Crawler's Nest. Totally okay for it. Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 had it. I believe its design could work in Final Fantasy XI. The question is design. Its reward structure, how it works properly. I think it's possible. I think that's something they could do, but let's look at all the options. 2, skill chains. Absolutely not. First of all, in Final Fantasy XI, eventually people realized skill chains were a DPS loss because they were holding on to weapon skills for so long that they were essentially losing weapon skills over the course of the entire fight. Yes, weapon skills did scale with the amount of TP you had, but generally the TP addition to your damage did not outweigh getting another 100 TP and doing another weapon skill. The faster you could, eventually people realize the faster you can get your weapon skills out, the better it's going to be. Samurai can solo some skill chains if you want, which is great because skill chains are a large burst in damage. But even lining it up with the magic burst, the sheer amount of setup, it was great. It was okay on leveling. Like, that it was fine on, because those enemies had a set frame. DPS was important, but killing it in one large burst of damage was equally as important, so you didn't have to drag the fight along. But that's why you saw some fights, it was like, oh, do we have our weapon skills lined up for a skill chain? No. Okay, just gonna use it on this enemy. Next enemy you fight. Hey, we do have our TP both lines up. Let's do a skill chain on this enemy. Great. It added some level of depth and some level of choice, but on the more important content, the end game content, it essentially became who can do all their weapon skills the fastest. And that was what determined how good your DPS was, or how high the numbers were. So absolutely not skill chains. And 3, the return of notorious monsters with unique and coveted gear. To be fair, It's not necessarily Notorious Monsters I would want out of this. It's unique, and it's not coveted gear. Unique gear, though. Definitely the one thing that I would want. I think of all three of the choices you gave me, open world dungeons would be my clear choice. I loved, actually, another example in 1.0, the Beastman Strongholds, and I think in Final Fantasy 11 we could also vouch for Beastman Strongholds since you listed Devoy here as one of them. I like those. I like it gives a more imminent threat. You can kind of understand the threat of the Beast Tribes a little bit more, whereas in 14 the story behind them is that they've been weakened so much so to the point because of the Enlightened races that they barely have any reach at all across the lands. And you're basically holding them down. So open world dungeons would be the one of these three things that I would be perfectly okay with. A zone with daily quests even would be perfectly acceptable to me. All right, next question. Hey, Happy. First time asking. I haven't really been keeping up with the live letters and stuff like that, but has Yoshi P mentioned going towards more horizontal gear progression? He has not. I mean, this is at its... When you're designed as a vertical progression game, it's not so simple to move towards horizontal progression. To move towards horizontal progression, you need to create multiple pieces of content at a similar difficulty with separate reward tiers. And even then, you do need to incorporate some level of vertical progression. I actually don't think horizontal progression exists in any game. I call it diagonal progression because it's horizontal and vertical, but it is more horizontal than vertical, if that makes sense. You're always going to have to add pieces that eventually outshine previous pieces. And this is also not a game where you have multiple sets of gear for multiple scenarios. You generally don't want one piece of gear to be required by the community in order to participate in a specific piece of content. When a game starts doing its designs via item level, it kind of loses itself in the ability to properly generate horizontal progression. You can still add interesting effects to gear, but adding something so unique that it becomes, quote, mandatory becomes very, very difficult. In Final Fantasy 11, I'll use that as an example, it's a bit easier to do because the game is very slow. The game allows for gear changes. Kind of the combat's really slow is, I guess, the big part of it. So you're able to more adequately move between these different pieces. And even for a while, they moved into item level. Item level is all that mattered as soon as they added item level. It barely mattered at all what the effects were. And then eventually they tried to move away from it. But even now, even though the item level still stays at 119, they keep adding gear that's stronger with the same item level, which, by the way, is not how item level works. I don't even think they really understood how they were calculating item level. They just said, fuck it, just add a number onto it so people know it's stronger, and 119 will be the number that we land on eventually. And then they just tossed it aside and said, fuck it, we'll just add stronger gear, but we won't increase the item level anymore. I don't think they have any idea what they're doing with item level in that game at this point. So no, I don't think we're going to be moving towards horizontal gear progression. It should be about the content you're doing more so than the gear you're receiving from said content. I do agree that rewards are a big motivation for people to complete content, but I don't think that horizontal progression is going to be what gets you there. All right, next question. Hey, Senor Feliz. Have a nice Sunday evening. So I just saw your Rival 500 unboxing. I got to ask, being mostly a console player and having never used a gaming mouse, how do you set up all those extra buttons for a game, say like 14? Are they really necessary? So necessity is in the eye of the beholder, I like to say, when it comes to gaming peripherals in general. There are people who play Final Fantasy XIV with just the keyboard. And you know what? To them, that's all that's necessary. They don't need a mouse at all. And I know that sounds crazy, but I've raided with one of them in many years past. And they performed just fine in raid. They just understood exactly what they needed to do to perform to their maximum with the thing that they preferred the most. And then you have people who do play with a mouse, but they play with those really shitty mice. So you know what they do? They use Control, Shift, and Alt modifiers with their keyboard commands. Or they do their own unique thing. Maybe they keep their mouse close to the numpad, and they reach over and they press like the plus or the enter key on the numpad with their thumb. You know, that sounds a lot like what an MMO mouse does, but you know what? That's the game. It's the way that they feel it's necessary for them to perform. Then you have people who buy MMO mice, like me. We find it necessary to cover all of our buttons or to make certain buttons more comfortable to press while we're doing things like moving and avoiding mechanics. And that's really why I use it, is because there are so many skills in Final Fantasy XIV that I don't feel I can comfortably achieve pressing and key binding all those on just my keyboard with my left hand alone. I feel like my right hand is needed to do something other than direct the mouse. So what do? I have the mouse buttons, and that's what I use them for. I've made excellent use of them. I've enjoyed learning myself how to utilize them, especially with this Rival 500, man. At first I was a little worried about the ergonomic design because it's something totally new to me. You know, when you're not used to something, it's a little scary at first. I got used to it pretty fast on Machinist. I still need to mess around with it a little bit on Astrologian, but especially for like what my keybinds were before and then just incorporating them flat out onto the Rival 500, they ended up working almost better, I felt. But I'll have to see them over, of course. That's also because these buttons are a lot more sturdy than some other MMO mice out there that I know about. But anyway, I guess it mostly depends on personal preference. Yep, exactly. And some people literally use only their buttons on their MMO mouse, by the way. They use all 12 buttons, they shift and control modify them, and all they do with their left hand is move. Like, all put down to personal preference, my friend. All right, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, thank you and also Marco for the translation of the producers letter. He does the translations, I just type stuff. Useful. Here are my questions. One, after the information we got from the letter, I heard many people are going to go do Savage first, which is normal, given they can get crafted weapons. Is the market going to blow up as usual for each major patch? Absolutely. This market's going to be making people millions and billions of gil if they're prepared for it. Two, do you know if there's going to be new gear for crafters and gatherers? I don't, because, so when they showed Wondrous Tales, they showed that it was giving item level 190 HQ gear. It had 5 guaranteed materia melt slots, but it was still item level 190 crafter or gatherer gear. And it was gotten right alongside the new I-250 crafted body piece. So I'm assuming that there will not be an item level increase for crafters and gatherers in this patch. 3, if I am not going for world first, come on. Okay, is it worth to get crafted battle gear? That's entirely up to you. If you want it, and it's a goal for you that you want to achieve, go for it. If you think that's your best avenue for getting new gear, you want to do the melds, you want to stand out amongst people like, yeah, I have the crafted gear, go for it. I think that it's really up to that. If you're not doing world first prog, none of it's important. Item level isn't that important right away, so that's your choice, and I can't tell you if it's right or wrong. And 4, do you know if the Final Fantasy trading card game, it seems to be starting an NA version. So actually, I heard about that. If somebody could tell me the release date for the Final Fantasy trading card game in North America, I will gladly do card openings, because I was a huge collector of card games. And I was somebody who, I liked playing them on occasion, like the Pokemon card game. The Toys R Us near me had a Pokemon League. I used to go there and I used to battle other people. Eventually, I moved into Yu-Gi-Oh! And you know what? Up until the Gladiator Beasts, like when Six Samurai Gladiator Beasts were still the hot thing, I was collecting the cards. That was when Gold Packs came out and they re-released the Crush Card Virus, so that it was available officially as a North American card, as not a fake. I think there were only like 10 Crush Card Viruses officially released in North America prior to those gold packs being released. And I used to buy those, and I would sell the cards that I didn't need on eBay and make a killing, and then I would go and buy more cards, and I would duel with those, and I used to participate in local tournaments for that, and it was great. I had a lot of fun doing that. Honestly, Pot of Greed. I see my chat talking about the Pot of Greed. Most verbal way of saying draw 2 cards in an anime that's ever been done. So when it comes to the North American TCG, I'll probably never fight people with it. I'll probably just collect cards, and who knows, maybe I even use them as giveaways on my channel. And the excitement of opening a pack and getting a rare card, that's something all of us, I know any of you who have ever played a card game, you love that feeling. You love looking, oh my god, this pack. Could this pack be the one with the holographic Charizard in it, first edition? Open it. It doesn't have it. Shit. Oh, maybe I should get another one. I'm really feeling it today, guys. I really want that. I know today is the day I get the holographic Charizard. I know it. The first edition holographic Charizard. Okay, open another pack. Well, I didn't get a Charizard, but I got a Blastoise. I guess that's not bad. But it's not the Charizard card. I need to get the Charizard card. You know what that feeling is like. And I love that feeling. All right, I think this is the final question on the forums. After this, we'll move over to taking questions from the live Twitch chat. Hey there, Mr. Happy. Greetings from Luxembourg. Hello. I don't know where Luxembourg is. I have 2 small questions for you this week. Didn't Square Enix say they would add Jesus skin to the Summoner Pets at 3.4? You know what's funny? Everyone saw Obsidian Carbuncle in the cutscene, and they're like, maybe that's their subtle tell that it's still in the patch. They haven't mentioned it. So, I don't know if it's happening. They said it was going to be in 3.4, but we didn't see anything. Sad face. When do you think Square Enix will drop some juicy info about 4.0? So in case you didn't know, the Final Fantasy Fan Festival, the North American one, which is the first of 3, there will be one in North America in October, one in December in Japan, and one in February in Europe. Each of those will contain juicy tidbits and information about the expansion. We should be getting the expansion trailer on October 14th, 2016. If they don't, decide to just give us blue balls with expansion information, definitely expect some official announcement. We're very close. We're like less than a month out of hearing about the expansion. It feels like just yesterday we started with Heavensward. But anyway, that was the final question over on the Dream Network forums. Thank you for that. We are now going to be taking questions live from the Twitch chat. So, Twitch chat, ask away. All right, so the first question we have here in the chat is Hap. Do you think dynamic group raids could work in Final Fantasy XIV? Like dynamic queue and WoW, where the difficulty scales with the amount of people. If it's worked in another MMO, I don't see a reason why it couldn't work in Final Fantasy XIV. Yes, it's a different game. Yes, it's got different systems. But, I mean, that's problem solving for you, right? Like, there's a way to get that to work in Final Fantasy XIV. And it could be a good idea. I do think that it could be a good idea at some point in the future. We'll just have to see if it's ever something that's on their radar. All right, next question. Can we speculate about the shiny weapons used in the dungeon previews in the trailer? Are those the next step of the anime appearance? So if you're talking about some of the weapons that are shown in the dungeons, I believe one of them is a new crafted Ravana weapon. So you remember when they added the crafted Bismarck weapon, they added the crafted Ramu weapons for Glamour? It looked like crafted Ravana weapons and crafted Thornton weapons were there. Now, because they were using them in the dungeon, of course it could just be glamored over whatever they're wearing. It could also be possible that the I-250 weapons are actually like Thornton, like glowing Thornton weapons or glowing Ravana weapons. That's not likely, but it's possible. So I think that that's what it was. You also had the Palace of the Dead weapons that glowed. And somebody pointed this out to me. In the Palace of the Dead part of the preview, they're standing in front of a silver chest with their original Ether Pool weapons and like shields and whatnot. When they opened the chest, it looks like their weapons changed. I'd have to rewatch it again just to be 100% sure. But it looked like when their weapon went to plus 31, it actually went and changed its color and its shape and everything. I don't know if that's exactly how it works, but that's kind of what my dissection was when I heard about that. Next question. What are your thoughts on creating more difficult dungeons as a way to create more mid-core content? I support it. I absolutely support dungeons themselves being a little bit more dynamic, a little bit harder. I don't think, here's the thing, we need to make sure, like I spoke about it with normal mode, that content remains on a level where if somebody logs in and they attempt something, even if they, they can't do everything, what they complete needs to feel good that they completed. For that reason, if they really wanted to make like a really difficult 4-man dungeon and they're like, oh, but all we'd be doing is cranking the numbers up, which I agree. You'd make the mechanics a little bit harder. You crank the numbers up on damage so that your healers and your DPS need to pay attention. You add soften rages, you add harden rages, whatever you need to do. And it's kind of artificial inflation of difficulty, but I mean, kind of most difficulty in MMOs is artificial inflation. If you took one fight and you reduced all the numbers down to 1, then the fight's really easy all of a sudden. And so a big part of it is making sure the numbers are threatening. So I guess you could kind of argue that. But if you make it so like one boss is 35 lore tomestones, for example. So if you beat the whole thing, maybe you get 105 lore tomestones as opposed to the 45 that you get now. And all of a sudden that difficulty and those number increases is warranted. If somebody can even just beat the first boss, odds are it was worth their time. And they can beat 2 of the bosses also. And it also helps train them a little bit for harder content. The thing is, you can't sacrifice the current difficulty of dungeons to achieve that. So it's a very difficult balance, and I really think they do need a bigger development team before you're going to see anything like that. This next question is a League of Legends one. Does NA have a shot at Worlds this year? I don't think so. I think this is going to be a horrible year for the West. I want to be wrong, but yeah, I mean, to be fair, some of the other regions, it's pretty much just 1 or 2 teams look great, and all the other teams kind of don't look great. And some of the teams may have looked better in their regions, but they by no means look like they would do as well on the international stage. I want North America and Europe to do better. I think all 3 of Europe's teams are going to be eliminated. G2 is... Actually, no, I think G2 will make it through and get to quarters. I think TSM has got it tough to get through to quarters. They have a chance. I think CLG is absolutely not making it to quarters. I think C9... I can't remember C9's group off the top of my head. But no, TSM, I don't think North America is going to take Worlds. I would love to be wrong, though. All right, so this next question is about the channel itself, because someone in the chat saw a tweet, and I actually covered it live on the live stream earlier. Mr. Happy, are you moving from GameWisp back to Patreon again? So, first of all, it's been like years since I've actually used Patreon. Yeah, I wanted to use GameWisp sort of like a Patreon. I felt a little bit more secure with their systems, just because, in case you guys didn't know, when I was first starting out, I had a $5,000 fraudulent pledge to my Patreon account, and Patreon handled it very professionally, but it left just a sour taste in my mouth. I found it harder to really enjoy or utilize the platform after that. It's just I couldn't bring myself to utilize the platform after that, especially after I got partnered on Twitch. I had the sub button, you know, there people had the ability to tip. Now people have the ability to cheer. You know, YouTube still brings in, you know, money from the business every month. Patreon is more of a thing for me because the big thing is I want to offer a reward structure, and I didn't feel like I was properly able to utilize Game Wisp's reward structure without sort of overhauling my current production structure, the way that the stream is produced and what it actually gives to the broadcaster. So with Patreon, a lot of it would be basically reaching certain, and this is still subject to change, like people who cheer a minimum, I'm sorry, people who pledge a certain minimum amount. For example, maybe every time I do a t-shirt sale, I can ship them a t-shirt of their size. You know, that could be something that that I do. There could also be, you know, if I get to X amount of dollars per month, I can produce this content. You know, I can produce this extra content, or I could revive old content. A lot of things that came to mind, for example, were Healer Happy, were the Final Fantasy XI Let's Play series, the Bestiary series. A lot of it came down to I stopped doing a lot of these series because of the time investment versus time I could be spending in other things to actually improve the Twitch stream or improve YouTube or something along those lines. And sometimes just strictly not enough time. And it was just, it made things very difficult because these were not all series I wanted to stop. They were series that either I became a little bit more stressed doing them than I was enjoying them because of the amount of time investment that was required. So Patreon, with that, I'd be able to more easily kind of figure out, hey, okay, this amount helps me produce this content more frequently. On top of that, I could take a portion of this and I could use it for Twitch giveaways, or I could use it for giveaways on Gleam or something like that. You know what I mean? It feels like I can more easily track reward structure if I were to go back to Patreon, and it's still not 100%. It's likely we'll be revitalizing the Patreon at some point. So just it's in works. But if we do make a change, that is something that's being considered, since that was the base question there in the first place. And when was the time you started playing games? What was your first game ever you got addicted to? So my earliest memory of playing video games is like when I was 4 or 5. I remember I used to wake up before school and I would go downstairs. I had a hand-me-down NES, a hand-me-down Super Nintendo. I would play things like Kirby. What was the name? So there was Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on the Sega Genesis. There was a Kirby game that was just like that, and I can't remember what it's called. That game I was super addicted to. There was also that Mario game where it was another puzzle-solving game like Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. I saw somebody speedrunning it at SGDQ this year. I can't for the life of me remember what it was called. I love those kinds of puzzle games that were like Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine and those other two games that I'm describing right now. There's a specific genre that they fit into as a puzzle game that I can't remember the name of. And whatever it was, yeah. I was addicted to video games ever since I was really, really young. I mean, I got my N64 when that came out, the year that came out. And I opened the N64, and I wasn't quite as hype as that kid in the YouTube video. But what happened was I was looking around because I knew what the shape of the cartridges were. And so I found one. I was like, this is absolutely an N64 game that's wrapped in this. So I opened it, Super Mario 64, my first Nintendo 64 game. Not Dr. Mario, but another great game. A different game. I think it was a Yoshi game, more specifically, Pyorth. But wherever I was going. And I opened it, I was like, yes, Super Mario 64, yeah! And then I open it, and I thank my parents, and they go, just so you know, that's a rental. That's got to go back tomorrow. And, yeah, let's just say that kind of ruined my Christmas. I mean, to be fair, Super Mario 64 was, like, sold out everywhere. That's the only way I could play it on the day I got my N64. So we ended up re-renting it when we went to the rental, and then we bought it like a week later. So it was fine. I still got to play it nonstop as if I owned the game. But like as a 5 or 6 year old, hearing that, I was like, no. Oh, it was good times, good memories. But yeah, I'd say that those kind of games were really the early games that I definitely got addicted to. All right, next question. Happy, any other games you're looking forward to streaming? Man, where's the list? So we have World of Final Fantasy, we have Final Fantasy 15, we have Persona 5, we have Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, we have Dark Souls 3 DLC, we have patch 3.4, obviously, 3.5, of course, the next expansion next year. We have Final Fantasy 12 Zodiac Age. We have, let's see, there's some other games. Kingdom Hearts 2.8, I want to restream Kingdom Hearts 1, I want to restream Kingdom Hearts 2. We still got to play Final Fantasy 13. My friend Ray got me The World Ends With You. That's another one I'd like to stream. 3DS games. I would like to play some of the Shin Megami Tensei 3DS games. Pokemon Sun and Moon. Those are all games that I'm going to stream. All of them. Somehow. I don't know how. I'm panicking a little bit. It's a lot of fucking games. Cool, though. Here's a quick one. Mr. Happy, do you still play Pokemon Go? No, but I do appreciate some of the content they've added to it. The buddy thing is really good. I wish the buddy thing was available when I first started playing. That's one of those things that you go, man, if only that was around when I was playing. That would have been fantastic. I don't know. Pokemon Go, I mean, mobile games generally end up as fads. They don't end up as, like, long-staying things. But you know what? If I check my phone right now, the local gyms, there's changing hands constantly. People are still out there playing it quite frequently. It's just not something that the widespread are playing. It's always that initial hype, and then it comes down to the hardcore few that stick with it and really make sure that they keep playing it and keeping up with the content that it releases. All right, so I see two questions that I want to answer, so I'm just going to do them back to back right here. One, what are your thoughts the next raid will be? You think it'll be Omega Weapon? First of all, your name is Omega in the chat. It might have a 3 and a 9 in it, but it's still Omega. I think Omega's likely. I think the next main raid will probably not be something so separated from the main story like Alexander was. I think it'll be a lot closer to being influenced by the main story in some way. That being said, the other question that we had here is how do you balance Twitch and YouTube? I don't very well. I mean, I stream on Twitch 7 to 8 hours a day. So that's immediately what most people would consider a full work day. And luckily, like I was saying earlier when we were talking about Patreon, we have plenty of subs. We have people who cheer. We have people who tip the broadcast. We have people who watch YouTube videos. It all adds up and it makes for a comfortable amount. The thing is, I would like to do a whole lot more with YouTube, and again, it comes back to the time thing. I spend quite a lot of time. Like, some days I'll spend maybe another 2 or 3 hours on YouTube. Some days I spend another 6 hours on YouTube, and that's not really balanced. That's more like, you know, I'm just making do with whatever time I can, whatever I feel like I need to get what I want to get done. So, it's not balanced very well at all. It used to be balanced better, but see, because when I first started, YouTube was like my entire income. And then I started streaming on Twitch, and then Twitch became my entire income, and since then that never really warped back, whereas YouTube, I just, like, when I want to produce a video, I do, and it's less about feeling pressured to put content out and more about making sure that it's content that I legitimately want to put out to people. So, it's not, like I said, not balanced very well. Hopefully I get better at it as time goes on, but I'm somebody who just works all the time, so it's more about where I put that work, I guess. Next question. So Happy, what other ways do you want to see your business grow? Let's see. Patreon is not really a way to make the business grow. It's a way to make sure I can produce content more consistently. So that's not really an answer. I'd like to do more podcasts, but again, see, the thing I like about podcasts is there's a bit of overlap. I can produce it on Twitch and then place it on YouTube, so it's a very time efficient means of entertaining both audiences. It's a reason why I love State of the Realm. It's a reason why I like doing the count up cast while we're doing it. So that's where I would like to see it grow, is the ability to do more podcasts. I'm a very, I don't want to say narrow-minded individual, very narrow-interested individual, though. So even the things I would like to do podcasts about, if I did do them, I probably wouldn't be as knowledgeable about them as I am about Final Fantasy XIV. That being said, I think podcasts are the thing I'd like to see next for the business to grow. And on top of that, I'd just like to see me be able to bring consistently more content within the same time frame that I'm currently offering. Like, for example, people actually really liked when I played For Honor. You know, that's cool because that gives me a bit of confidence to, if, like, when the game comes out, I want to stream it. You know what? I feel a little more confident doing that. You know, I feel confident that I could put content out on YouTube. I could stream it on Twitch, and it would be good, you know? On top of that, in terms of legitimate business, releasing merchandise more often I know that we have an idea for a Christmas shirt this year, and the Mr. Happy shirt also is likely going to be making a return in the very near future. The base one that just says Mr. Happy Gaming. We don't have to redesign it or anything. We just put it out once a year. And I know some people want like coffee mugs. You know, we have the coffee brand, so that kind of works already. And that was honestly a big step when it came to the channel, was getting that coffee partnership with Josh and Double Jump, because coffee, I've wanted that for years, and it was like a goal attained, and that was great for me. And hopefully I can continue to reach goals like that. Things that I want, we're actually able to achieve them. Next question. If Final Fantasy XIV didn't exist, and now I'm assuming you mean not that it goes out of existence, but that it never existed in the first place, what would you stream do on YouTube? You know what? I still really like Square Enix games, so that would still probably be a very focal point. When it comes to other things, though, just whatever I really want. Like, what are some other games that I liked making? I made videos on SimCity. That was fun for when it actually worked. Minecraft was also something I loved making videos on. I wouldn't mind doing that more. And then just really whatever I feel like. I mean, I love Super Smash Brothers. That was another really big one. I used to play that a ton. There's a lot of games. It's really just a greater variety of game, but not much in terms of different style. It's just that the guide thing would probably not have been much of a factor, if that makes sense. All right, so the last question we're going to answer on this Mondays with Mr. Happy, because this is one that has been jam-packed with a ton of questions. You're playing Final Fantasy Count Up. What Final Fantasy would you say has had the biggest jump in quality from the one before it? Okay, 4 from 3, I think, was the highest quality jump. The sprites, the story, the characters, the way that those characters interact with each other. I think 4 was the biggest quality jump over 3. From 3 to 4 was the biggest quality jump. Second place would have been the jump from 9 to 10. That was what I was originally considering, but Final Fantasy IV, just look at how it's aged. Look, it's the single most ported Final Fantasy to date, and that's for a reason. It's even gone so much as to get voice acting in that 3D remake of it. So, you know, I think that's my answer. The jump from 3 to 4, I feel, was the biggest increase in quality between 2 consecutive Final Fantasy games. And that's going to be the final question I answer for Mondays with Mr. Happy. Of course, guys, whenever you join my stream during the week, you can always ask me questions there. You can join me live with the Mondays with Mr. Happy recordings every Sunday, or you can ask your questions in the Dream Network forums. If you're watching this on YouTube, it will be under the stream. If you're not, just type !dream and go to the forums, go to the Mr. Happy section, and then look for the State of the Realm question area. That always pops up Monday morning, so don't go looking for it now. You won't find it if you're watching me live on Twitch. For the stream itself, or for the YouTube video, videos under the stream, same deal, same videos as they were at the beginning of. If you didn't check them out there, check them out now. Watch them. A lot of information about patch 3.4. 3.4. Don't forget, tomorrow, since it's Sunday right now, we do have Count Up Cast tomorrow. We'll be talking about Final Fantasy IX, which is, I've got, man, just couldn't steal. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up on the YouTube side. Twitch, I'm still going to be hanging out for a few more minutes, so if you want to hang out, be sure to stick around. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you next week. Until then, take care.